What terrifying confession has someone told you while drunk? A coworker told me she went all Angel of Mercy and smothered her elderly, dementia-ridden grandmother while she was sleeping. The next Monday in the office was definitely a weird one after that particular happy hour confession. I worked in a hospital and an alcoholic guy I knew from around my town came in. Of course he was very drunk, so he got a bed. He was homeless at this point. Just as he was starting to settle he screamed I slit his ducking throat. So I went up to him and asked him to settle, and he started telling me that he did it while in the army and could never forgive himself for it, cried himself to sleep, and died in the local park a few months later. It was me who did the confessing. When I was 18 I was sexually assaulted on a bridge in the middle of the night when I was all alone. My mum works in hearing, and she had always told me to bite someone if I got into trouble. So I did. I bit into his neck until my teeth met again. He fell down, then I ran all the way home. A few weeks later I read in the news that a serial assaulter had gone to the hospital with neck wounds and later died. They'd drawn it down to him attacking someone and them acting in self-defense. I never told anyone until I got really drunk with my boyfriend last year and spilled it. He couldn't believe I'd kept that secret. Once at a college party, this big guy got upset, picked up the table, and threw it across the room, shouting my uncle molested me. Everyone was terrified, but we all felt really bad for the guy. I have a friend whose grandmother married her late husband's friend. One day while drunk he confessed to killing her first husband. She packed up the kids and left. I had a male friend tell me he had raped me once when I was passed out drunk. I'm a straight male and had been friends with this guy for 15 years and had been drunk with him a lot. Since then I have found out a lot of messed up stuff about him. My sister's boyfriend at the time told me he thought he might have fallen for the wrong sister. Doesn't compare to most of these. But my sister is my best friend. And I was so scared he might ruin that. Edit. Since a lot of people have asked. No. I never told my sister about it. Another edit. They broke up very shortly after this. Because he was untrustworthy in other ways, he stole some money. She kicked him to the curb. My ex told me that he had been molested by his sister between the ages of 6 to 11. She was 9 to 14. His dad walked in once and didn't do anything. His own family knew that he was being sexually abused for years and did absolutely nothing to protect him. I heard my mom tell her friend I was a mistake and the reason her and my dad divorced. That's why you don't eavesdrop. Had a buddy tell me his friend drunkenly confessed to him that he had killed his stepdad and made it look like a suicide. His stepdad had been abusive towards him and his mom for years, and it finally broke when he made it look like his stepfather had hung himself in their garage. I don't know who the friend was. I was never given a name or much else of the story. Went on a work do, and my coworker, a major stone-faced bland woman, got pretty drunk. Ended up telling me she discovered her dad's body when he hung himself. Needless to say I realized why she was the way she was after that. Haha. I put Adderall in your beer. We are gonna party till the sun comes up, bro. Night before his wedding day. I'm still in love with C_, but I'm still gonna marry F_ tomorrow because it's too late now. If my ex was still in love with me, I wouldn't be married to you. My mom was in another state for business. A company flew her crew out to Texas to discuss a change in software and offered their company. And so it was just my dad taking care of me. I was about 10 and he came to tuck me in one night. But he has incredibly hammered. He opened the door to my bedroom. Told me I was a mistake that saved them from getting divorced and good night. Worst part is he didn't close the door completely when he left. She told me she poisoned her abusive ex. A funny old drunk in my town used to come in and chat with me at the ice cream parlor I worked at. He was a very kind old man who liked to joke around, and he was always very appropriate to me and the other teens who worked there, but just lonely I guess. One day I was asking him if he was ever married, and he got tears in his eyes and said I lost her. She died with the baby. And that's when everything went bad. And then left. Me and the other girl working just sobbed. It was so sad. After a work party, the wife of a colleague and me ended up being the last two people standing. We were both fairly drunk when she started telling me about how she was raped by a priest when she was a kid. The church covered it all up, and the bastard never faced any charges. When he was 11, my dad was abducted and raped by 3 men. He was so terrified that he never told his parents. After my grandpa passed away, my dad finally told my grandma what happened. She told him that they already knew. One of my dad's siblings knew and had told grandpa. She just said that he had taken care of it. A few years later, a developer bought my grandparents' farm and turned it into a development. During excavation, they found 3 male skeletons buried in a single grave. I guess grandpa really did take care of it. Rangers really do lead the way. I had someone tell me that he molested his daughter when she was an infant because he was angry and thought that his girlfriend had cheated on him and that she wasn't his biological daughter. He went on to say DNA testing was done and it was determined that she was actually his daughter and that he felt very guilty about the whole thing. His daughter was 7 to 8 at the time he told me this. I literally spent a night tossing and turning thinking about it and finally decided I had to report him. My friend's husband told me he was hiding liquor from his wife, my friend. Which was weird, because they both drink and it's not a big deal. I told my friend what he said. She confronted him and all of his lies started pouring out. Cheating on her with multiple women. Lying about his income. Taking CCs out in her name. Racking up tens of thousands of dollars on them. Stealing from their kids' college funds. They are now divorced. That weird little lie he told me while drunk is what started it all. My old pastor told me he was gay and found women repulsive. He had a wife and a baby on the way. This was in a small, very religious town where fear about the homosexuals were rampant. A friend of mine told me once we were out of college about his hazing back in freshman year of high school for wrestling. That was some repressed barbaric homosexual stuff. He started tearing up. It was bad. You hear about some of this hazing stuff, but there's plenty of times you don't hear about it, and it goes unreported. An ex-friend, not because of this, but other circumstances, basically suggested he had sex with his uncle, just to piss off his aunt, mom's sister, and that he was saving it for when they had a big fight. Later he denied saying anything like that, of course. But a while later we heard there was indeed problems within his family and they ended up moving from town. That was when I was like 16 to 17 yo. Guy I work with was hanging out with me and my friends. My friends left and I was alone with co-worker. He didn't seem that drunk, but later claimed he was. He told me all about the fantasies he had about raping and torturing me. Yup, I left pretty promptly. My mother once told me a story while drunk. She had a pregnancy before me, but her boyfriend wasn't ready for a kid. So he kicked her in the stomach until she was no longer pregnant. So for revenge she had her friend who was a prostitute seduce him, take him to a hotel room, and tied him up. My mom then described how she took a baseball bat and broke every bone she could of his. Described how she had to throw water on him to keep him awake. She was never tried for it, so I'm assuming he lived. I had heard the kicked in the stomach till miscarriage part before. The whole bat thing was a new detail. She hasn't mentioned it since. My awesome boss at the time, who didn't say much about his life, confessed to me that his marriage wasn't something he wanted, and that he's only staying in it for the love of his 2 young daughters. It was heartbreaking. In college, I was getting drunk with a couple friends. One admitted that she gave her brother a blowjob. Her brother had caught her watching lesbian porn, and threatened to tell their parents if she didn't suck his stick. My other friend and I were horrified and asked her why she didn't just tell her parents first about her brother blackmailing her, and that the claim she was watching lesbian porn was a lie. She paused for a secretary, and said she didn't think of that. Not really a confession, but more of something no one ever told me. One time I was watching a movie with my mom, and she had had a few drinks. She wasn't wasted, but she was more talkative. Something in the movie made her talk about her life leading up to now. Apparently, a year or two before I was born, she was pregnant and suffered a miscarriage because the pharmacist gave her the wrong medicine, and they told her she probably wouldn't have children again. This was the first time in 17 years I had ever heard anything about this, so it came to a complete shock to me. I was at a party of a friend of my father. Then, one of his guests, while being totally drunk, started to advise me about women. He basically said that every woman are sleets and we, as men, have must see them with lust, even if they're our family. That they witnessed a mugging/stabbing outside of a bar, and did nothing but watch the person bleed on the sidewalk. I asked why they didn't call 911, and the excuse was that they knew the stabbing and didn't want to snitch. I got drunk with my uncle and we started talking about relationships. And as a game, I asked, "What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in a relationship?" We went back and forth saying all the dumb and ducked up things we've done to the women in our lives. And it's escalating. And we are becoming more and more honest. Until eventually he shouts excitedly, "I beat her." It got dead silent. We drank quietly, then went to bed. It's never really been the same since. Not me, but a friend of mine's mom told her that she wished that she had died instead of her twin. She had a twin that died during pregnancy. Me, not drunk, but high as a kite. When I was in Peace Corps, I told my best friend that I loved him and then kissed him. I then realized what I did and feared for my friendship with him. He told me, "I've known you were gay for over a year, and I've seen you glancing at me. It's okay, but I'm straight." To add to this, we were both just wearing boxer shorts, as it was hot as duck in Khao Karan, Thailand at the time. I met my wife's co-worker at her work Christmas party. Everyone was drinking. 5 minutes into meeting him, he tells me he's a lonely virgin whose virginity is eating him up inside. He went to Vegas alone to maybe get a hooker and just live. But he was too nervous to get a hooker. He ended up buying an 8-ball of cocaine and masturbated alone in his hotel room for the weekend, crying the whole time between lines. It was just so personal, mayo. An ex, who was known for getting mad at me for having limits in the bedroom, told me she raped 2 women in HS and college. One so the witch would leave her the duck alone and the other agreed to it. Said she enjoyed, but never spoke to her again. My parents told me, while very drunk, that they were very kinky, into heavy BDSM, and that my dad was a bottom. My stepmom reassured me that they were also kinkier than I was. Not fun. My boss, who I didn't exactly love, told me that she had 2 vaginas when she was drunk at the Christmas party. She swore me to secrecy, which was hard cause we all hated her at work. I'm not trying to make fun of her, but man, I never looked at her the same again. I did keep her secret though and only told my non-work best friend. My ex told me the only reason I was still alive was because he was stopping all his colleagues from taking it too far. I was 10. He was 17. His colleagues were his uncle's friends. And I imagine that what he said was true, because they were abhorrent people who did abhorrent things to me and many other young girls. I overheard a murder confession. I was at a resort in New England with my family. I went onto the balcony to smoke. I could hear people talking somewhere above and to my right. They were very drunk. The man said he was going crazy with guilt. He shot someone over a drug deal, and he drives by the memorial all the time. I couldn't tell which unit the people were in. The man had no discernible accent. He never mentioned a city name or anything. No details at all. I really wish I could have helped solve a murder. Once had someone tell me, while drunk, I need a girl with an open mind and tight vagina, but cause I have a macro penis. That was pretty terrifying. I had a girlfriend say she may be into girls too. I told her to invite a woman upstairs to join us, and her friend came up. It turned into me being a third-party viewer, while watching 2 women discover their lesbian tendencies, while I just kinda sat there.